We can use informational text structures for planning lessons. Doing so provides us design clues for teaching while at the same time supports reading and writing informational text. Non-English teachers want to support reading and writing, but they are rightfully concerned about teaching their own content standards. Few teachers think they have the luxury of adding reading and writing standards. However, making sure content objectives drive the process, we can logically align both sets of standards, and we don't have to force anything. In 2006, we began seeing the effectiveness of using these informational text structures as a design element in planning lessons, and more importantly, using them to design teaching materials. In your search to find practical ways to support Common Core, you'll want to consider this. The very same informational text structures found in our content are also found in our performance objectives. This means we can use the knowledge of these structures for reading, writing, and teaching. Our limited time here will not do justice to a full understanding of the outcomes and effectiveness that can be leveraged here. You'll want to spend some time exploring the overlapping connections between these structures, reading, writing, and teaching. Examine your content. You'll see the author may be comparing and contrasting multiple elements in one paragraph, examining a cause and effect relationship in the next, or outlining a sequence of events. There are only a handful of these structures. Recognizing their use in reading and writing is critical. Here is an example of how they are used in informational writing. In this brief passage, the author is simply describing a hurricane. Why does describing matter? Not only do students need to see this when reading, we ask students repeatedly in our performance objectives to describe, so we need to teach them how. We describe something by selected attributes, by the 5 W's, or by our 5 senses. Most informational text is descriptive. In the next passage, when hurricanes come ashore, large waves and strong winds damage buildings, cars, and trees. The author is writing about a cause and effect relationship between the hurricane and the damage. But represented here is also a sequence of events. We add meaning to our understanding by recognizing if we are exploring the effects of hurricane damage or analyzing a critical sequence of events as the life cycle of a hurricane unfolds. What is the author's intent in the overall piece? We don't know, but we are capable of figuring it out. Or maybe we will be selecting the intended structure and meaning based on learning goals. As readers and writers, that's a sample of how the structures are used. Now let's see how we can use the same structures for lesson planning. Whether we acknowledge it or not, informational text structures are already embedded in the very beginning of our lesson plan. Not only are they embedded in our content, they are also embedded in our objectives. Here is an example of Ag Science standards and embedded informational structures. In Objective 9.10, we want students to compare and contrast the impact of biotech on food processing and storage. We make decisions as teachers what it means for students to compare. While we're on comparing and contrasting, here's another interesting connection. Those of you familiar with Marzano's classroom instruction that works may remember the research-based strategy his team found to have the most impact on student achievement is similarities and differences, distinguishing what things are like and not like, comparing and contrasting. In addition to the words compare and contrast, watch for signal words like distinguish or differentiate. Moving on, Objective 9.11 represents cause and effect. In 10.1, the word practices is a common signal word, often for a sequence of events. In 10.3, the word identify is often asking students to describe. And as in the case of this objective, analyzing multiple views may be important for understanding, like also exploring the cause and effect relationship of the advances in technology. And finally, Objectives 11.1 and 11.5 are indicating the perspective of analyzing relationship between problems and solutions. During planning, before a lesson is taught, seeing these structures in our objectives helps us add clarity and focus to lesson plans and materials. We tie together teaching strategies to formative assessments while we pre-assess, activate prior knowledge, read or write, or use organizers, note-taking, guided questions, and other activities in class. These structures are embedded in teaching. Through the prism of informational text structures, look for design clues in your content and your objectives. When we use them for planning, informational text becomes embedded in formative assessments used throughout the lesson. While improving our lessons, we naturally support Common Core. Let me close with a final idea, actually another overlapping connection, that has done wonders for literacy integration and for demonstrating classroom results. We've been talking about how to use more effectively the time available to produce results in the hours we have, how to become better teachers of our content while at the same time finding natural ways to support reading and writing. Consider this final note related to informational text structures, reading and writing. Here you see informational text structures on the left and 6 traits on the right. Keep in mind we've been trying to integrate literacy for some time. If what you've tried hasn't worked very well, consider this. There are easy first steps to make to improve teaching and support literacy. Let's begin with focusing on 2 traits rather than 6. No matter what subject we teach, our content is full of ideas that must be understood by students to succeed in the discipline. And those ideas are organized, mostly in an informational style, to add meaning to the expression of those ideas. Use ideas and organization as a focal point for supporting Common Core ELA. As David Coleman puts it, we want students to read like a detective and write like a reporter. We want students to discover clarity in ideas. To do this, they will need to understand how those ideas are organized. This is true no matter what you teach. And just like the authors they read, students will write to express clear ideas, which includes being able to organize them into a meaningful flow. Please allow teachers to celebrate pre-writing and the effective use of these structures. Let's celebrate clarity of ideas, understanding, and analysis, represented right here in ideas, supporting details, and organization. Too often we blast past the meaning and analysis in these structures in a hurry to get to final papers. We can support literacy right here. Now let's look at how a focus on ideas and organization factor into Common Core standards. As your teams unpack Common Core standards into its meaningful and achievable parts, you'll see you can take a big step forward focusing on ideas and organization. For example, we want students to cite evidence of explicit and inferred ideas. In Standard 2, determine central ideas and details. Standard 3, analyze the development of ideas. And in Standard 4, analyze the development of ideas in a larger text. In Standard 8, evaluate argument, which is essentially ideas and supporting evidence. And in Standard 9, extend the analysis of ideas to broader concepts and multiple text. We can take some very practical first steps supporting Common Core just by focusing on ideas and how those ideas are organized. Concluding, please note there are resources available on my website to help you complete the steps discussed here today. For example, here's one of 2 worksheets we use to brainstorm and outline lessons. This highlights the 3 sources of design clues: our objectives, specifically where students struggle to understand, and our content. Examined through the prism of informational text, design clues will jump off the page. Next is a worksheet that follows the three-step process of first, selecting objectives, second, brainstorming a body of formative assessment, and third, sequencing that evidence into a quality beginning, middle, and end of a daily lesson plan. Regarding lesson templates, I've been part of creating lesson templates that became bloated with perfectly logical ideas on what should be included in them. I don't have to tell you, large templates stifle creativity and disrupt our improvement cycle. Since I've refined this template down to a lean version that anchors the lesson in objectives and formative assessment on top, and below provides a place for outlining a flow of a lesson from beginning to end. But remember, lesson plans are not the goal. Classroom materials and teaching are. Lastly, you'll find informational text posters that are great for planning and having on your wall in your classroom so you can create an active dialogue with your students about informational text. Thank you for joining me. I've never been more hopeful. I know we can succeed implementing Common Core. I also know we can tragically make it more complicated than we need. It is possible to respond, as planners and revisers, more quickly and effectively to instructional needs. Help your teams refine lean cycles of planning and revising the classroom materials we use to teach. I can help you put these processes and tools to immediate use. Thank you.